Two. Welcome to this special episode of the Iowa blog. We're here in our library studio, and we have Leah with us. She has composed two new songs, one of which we're going to debut on this program. And the story of that song is based upon the story that is told in Numbers 5. Numbers 5 is known as the account of the adulterous woman, but that is misleading because
Yes.
there is no adultery involved here.
Nope.
In fact, God doesn't give two hoots about sexual promiscuity. When he speaks of adultery, it is religious adulterers being unfaithful to him with false gods like G-D and Hashem and Jesus and Allah and all that sort of thing. The Lord, Adonai.
Asherah, the mother goddess.
Asherah, the queen of heaven and the mother of God. Those kinds of things is what drive him crazy. He hates it. So there really is no adultery involved here. And to specify a woman is really unfair. The woman is a stand-in for the returning mortal remnant of Yisrael, and is therefore for men and for women. But the symbolism here is that since Yahweh divorced Israel in Hosea, if you recall, in Hosea, the prophet was asked to marry a temple prostitute, a religious whore, so that he could have some empathy for what Yahweh was dealing with pursuant to his people who had become religious whores and had been, well, since the early days of the Exodus, and nothing had changed. So Yahweh wanted to write, as the Torah prescribes, a letter of divorce to his people because he could not stand their religiosity. And therefore, this unfaithfulness has nothing to do with sexuality and all to do with religion. And the woman represents both men and women, boys and girls, who are returning to Yisrael and to Jerusalem and Mount Moriah during the celebration of the Adamah Parah, this productive red bull, if you will, that will be sacrificed on this occasion to purge this woman, this representative of all Yisrael, this surviving remnant, of her religiosity, so that she can be symbolically wed to Dod. Yahweh is not going to remarry symbolically Yisrael, but his beloved son, our king, is. And therefore, she has to be prepared for him. And when you read the story, what you find is that there are three really interesting words, of which Leah is going to explain each of the three. And this is a battle royale, really, between these two women and what they represent at this time, with one woman being exceedingly important and good for Yisrael, and the other, well, she is the whore of Babylon that has lured so many to their religious demise. So with that introduction, Leah, I'll let you speak to your song. Also, I would tell you that what we're going to do is following the song is we're going to turn to Numbers 5, jumping way ahead in the story as it relates to Qatsyr harvest. This is around page 700 of that book, 7 even past then. So we're going to jump way ahead in Qatsyr harvest because this is really a function of what transpires on Towrah as opposed to Shabuah. So with further ado, Miss Leah.
Okay. Well, I was chasing down a singular word that popped out at me. It's Azkara. And I was reading alone in Numbers 5, and I came across the word Nakba, and Nakeba, and Nakah. And these words, to Nakab, is to pierce, bore out, something. And specifically, the something is Yahweh's name. And if you puncture it by taking away the wa, because that's the O sound, in Yahweh's name. Taking that away means taking away either of the two people that stand up in Yahweh's name for introducing the two sons. Either one of them are rejected. It is piercing or puncturing or making of nothing Yahweh's name. To nakab is to be nakba, to be a rebellious woman, to be wrong, to be cursed, to be sent away with a leprous wound. That is the story. And it is a story, folks, of two women. It really comes down to that. And there is a stand-in for the nation of Israel. And she comes with the zikaron in her hand. It's profound. The Nakba also, it's interesting to note that the veil, it also means to veil. Throughout most of history, religious women were veiled, but none more so than the women of Islam. And they are incredibly nakba, nakeba. They nakab everything. And this is the curse of that is Allah. That is the curse.
Literally, Allah is
literally.
Literally in the Hebrew, Allah is a curse, and Allah in this case is the curse that the women are demeaned because of Allah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And this goes to the sacrifice of a bull, a goat, a ram, and a pigeon. We will find later. Stick a pin in that. We'll get back to that. The song I created is based on Numbers 5, Wakar 24, 19 through 24, and new translations that Yada has done, which I happen to be a fly on the wall. I get first read through. So I'm going to introduce the song called Nakba. It is the story of a bride, the whore, and a beast. If we would.
Come here and listen to my tone. I'll give you things you have not known. Open the door and I'll tell you more as you stand at the threshold. You say that my man's not true. His voice you crave all through the night. I say naka to the woman that he sets free. And I say knock up the one who bore out a hole where happiness goes. Two women in the love story, who could they be? One loved the problem for the other to solve. Didn't like the zakar, she sown seeds of her own. She bored a hole where happiness grew. When I held you so close that I broke in two. Naka to the nakar who set her free. 1 times 7 it shall be. A father loves his son and set for him a bride to marry. Built them a home in Yahowah's name. She came to destroy with a flame. At 7 in the morning I did weep for the jewels in his crown. Be you and me. She tossed them to the ground where they lie in dust. One loved the problem and the other to solve. What do you about love. Selah, Selah, Selah. I think about him that let me exhale, and in his greeting is Yahuwah's name. It tears through my mind that I have never knew that all the things of love I thought were untrue. She tore them up and bore a hole right through, a father's signature, and she will weep for that which she pierced. Weep not for her, the unclean soul, she who stands prominent on every corner to lay in wait for the souls of men. Weep when dumbstruck with the beloved of Yah. Your days are numbered by the Tzaba. Yada is the right hand of the Kodesh one. Yahowah's voice and son don't like it. She's the other one. Oh, backsliding daughter, how long will you pass yourself around? Unclean, unclean, you're into bonds. I told you her story when she broke the wall. She bore a hole into it all. I could tell it again, but I'd rather not. She bore a hole where happiness was. She took what was not hers to take. She left the other to clean up her mess. Forgive her not, for she is not mine. She opened her mouth and outpoured bitter wine, and not like my monologue, which riddles her mind. Yes, I'll find the O to replace the stolen, and I'll stand with the bull in honor and name, 'cause he found a woman which was bored out of the beloved, and I'm so in love. Now you've truly got nowhere to go, and to you the Zona I say shalom, shalom, and off with you to Babylon, where you belong to bleed on idols. She stand in the breach where she doesn't belong. Out to the tree of life, only it is not there for her. Send her away, Yahowah says, with her leprous wound. She doesn't belong. Now I got a stone in this song, and I'm going to scream from the top of my lungs. She bore a hole where happiness goes. Now I got a hole where the O used to go, with a stone on my bosom where my heart used to go. Oh, on my tongue I am going to place the happiness where she you won't I'll place the wall where happiness goes, and I'll grow the family you sought to destroy.
Well, just on its own merits, it is a beautiful song. It's beautifully scored. The visuals are dramatic. I would make one change, which is that when it's showing the Christian implications of the Mother Goddess, the Mother of God and the Queen of Heaven, I have a better image for you to
Oh.
put there.
Absolutely.
It is the new Pope bowing down before a statue of
Geez.
Mary, the Mother of God, and the
Oh,
Queen
that's perfect.
and the Queen of Heaven. It drives that point home.
Oh, yeah.
There is, so much to unpack in that song. I think it's probably better that we treat it briefly at this moment, and I will do a far deeper dive into it when I have all of the lyrics in front of me and can go one section at a time and speak to it. I like being extemporaneous. I would have preferred, if I had all of the lyrics to it, I would go through the lyrics now and explain every nuance in that song, because it's intellectually stimulating, the references here. But I'm going to share with you something that I think is important for you to hear before we go into Numbers 5. This idea of boring a hole in Yahweh's name and taking out the Wah is very personal with Leah and with myself and with the covenant family.
With Yahweh.
God's name is Yahweh. The Wah sound, which makes the O sound in the middle of his name, it's the same sound that is derived from the Wah in Torah, and no one has a problem
Or Shalom.
recognizing that it's Torah or Shalom. The O sound in Shalom is from the Wah. And we've been studying in one of our series the prophet, in fact, I think it's this one, just much earlier in the text, from the prophet Yoel. And how do you think you get Yoel? It's Yahweh is God, Yoel. And it's like the name Job. So many of the names that are conveyed have conveyed that unmistakable O sound. And we all know it's an O sound. But there's a mother goddess cult revolving around a psychotic woman, legally diagnosed as a psychopath, that has done a great service to us and a great disservice to all that she has fooled. Great service to us is that anybody that's foolish enough to be part of her mother goddess cult is good riddance, and
Bye-bye.
somebody we don't have to endure forevermore in heaven. So I'm glad they're gone.
Absolutely.
And
it's a service to the truth, really.
And that's the whole purpose of evil. I mean, God created
Yes.
Hasatan to represent evil. His programming is not dysfunctional. He's doing exactly as he was programmed to do. He is the one who fooled Chawah in the garden by inappropriately rendering Yahweh's testimony. And he is the author of Christianity and of Judaism and of Islam and of this cult. And so he serves a purpose. He is the filter. He is the distraction that prevents eternity with Yahweh turning out to be as ugly as life is now here on earth, plagued as it is by religion and politics and conspiracy and all manner of militarism. And in this particular case, to differentiate themselves from what they had learned, they changed Yahweh's name. And they took out the O sound. They made it Yahweh, and boring a hole right in the middle of his name. Now, that Wah in his name is very important. It is the tent peg that secures his name. That tent peg speaks of increasing and adding to. It speaks of securing and enlarging the tabernacle of the restoring witness, which is where we meet with God and encounter him. And that is what that tent peg does. It anchors God's story. It enlarges the tent for his family. It secures his family in the truth. And it adds to those two people that are represented standing on either side of his name. And the Wah, which is a conjunction, brings them together.
That's right. And would you say that both sons would add to the family? Because I think some people get it real twisted.
Right. No, it's both. There are two people that are represented in Yahweh's name. They are the greater and lesser luminaries of the creation account that are signs for the Moed. They're both referred to as sons of God, with Dod representing the greater luminary, who is Yahweh's firstborn son, and the other being the lesser luminary. The difference between the two is monumental, mind you. Dod is our returning king, and the lesser luminary is strictly his herald. The one who, like the moon, reflects the sun's light, doesn't generate any light on its own. It just reflects the sun's light, particularly piercing the darkness, which is the time we live in now. So to remove the reference to either of these two men, who are the only two men who actually fulfill sacrifices during the Moed,
That's right.
to resolve the guilt of God's people. This adulterous woman is purged of her religious infidelity because of the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah on Towrah.
And only because of that.
Right. And those who benefit from the Shabuah harvest, which is upcoming, and then the Towrah ingathering, are called into God's home only because Dod was the other man who fulfilled a Moed Mikre, and fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Makodim. Dod as the Passover lamb, Yada as the bloodied and productive bull. This is God's story, and he repeats it throughout the Torah, throughout the prophets, and he wants us to know it. I'm rendering now the story that begins in Numbers, Bamidbar, in the wilderness, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and ends in 19 and 20. And it is...
Actually, it begins in Kara 1 and then goes to Numbers and so on. It's the same story told a different way.
God tells the story from many different angles, but it is the story of this powerful lamb, the Ram of God, and this bull. And what do they offer to Israel to resolve Israel's, as God says, your horse? God currently views Israel as the walking dead and as whores. And so this is the resolution, to prepare that mortal remnant of Israel for Dod's return, so that she can experience this wonderful homecoming on Yom Kippurim. So that is the story that God's telling, and we had the really the benefit of having this leprous whore, psychopath, who once was manipulative in our midst, and was so troublesome. That's a nice way of saying it. And then after stealing from Leah and myself, and with us being the single most supportive individuals in her life ever, she went crazy, and she was able to lure away who knows how many people, but
who cares?
Actually, the more the better.
Yes.
Not for them, but if you were susceptible to such stupidity, then I'm glad you're no longer part of the covenant family. And so here we are, and we are reading this story because it is the same story that is presented in Numbers 11, when Moshe said, I can't deal with these people. They are way too obnoxious.
Yep.
And I just can't do this anymore. God, kill me. I don't want to.
Can we know?
I don't want to be part of this anymore. Yeah. And God not only didn't chastise Moshe for giving up, he agreed with him, but he said, I'm going to resolve this problem. I'm going to give you a team of people who are going to work as a means to relieve the burden.
Deflect the pressure.
Of the annoying nature of the people. You're still the only one that's going to speak for me. However, that's just to get them to the promised land. And this team is going to be girded such that they can deflect the animosity to people because they are really annoying. Then Numbers 12 is worse, where now the annoyance is a fractured family. Yeah. Miriam and Aaron, Moshe's brother and sister, attack their brother Moshe based upon his wife as just as a means to undermine him and to be mean, which is what this leprous hornets cult did to my wife to undermine my relationship with Yahowah. And then they claimed we too speak for God.
Oh,
and
sure
they
did.
made the exact same claim, just as it's prophetically.
In fact,
explained.
have you heard they've rewritten Genesis?
Yes, they have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they rewrote Genesis to include Mother God. Of course, there is no mention of a Mother God anywhere because God is always presents himself as our Father. Yahowah is a masculine name. Every aspect of his nature is conveyed as a parent, as a father figure. And what they want to extrapolate as Mother God is a ruach, which is not a separate part of Yahowah. He has a nephesh, he has a ruach. Both are feminine nouns in Hebrew, but they do not create a new persona, and there is no speaking role for the ruach. The ruach performs services pursuant to Yahowah's instructions. The ruach is not a separate persona. Nonetheless, they created this myth on some of the most dubious terms ever, and have lured a lot of people away. And if they had just gone off on their own, I wouldn't have cared. So she stole money. So she abused people. That's you can't fix everything, but they didn't.
Nor would I want to.
They stole copyrighted material from me, my transliterations, my translations, my unique translating style, the bookshelf ideas that I came to present our material. They were obnoxious and trying to attack on all forms of social media, just to make certain that our metrics weren't as robust as they would otherwise be. Just mean, disgusting from God's point of view. That's why he struck Miriam with leprosy and not only exiled her, and she is the representative of this woman who is so nasty as head of this Mother Goddess cult, struck her with leprosy and sent her outside of the community. And then in Devarim, the last reference to her is that she's the great example of divorce. Of goodbye, good riddance, you're gone. And so it's a really interesting story. And of course, in Numbers 12, we're introduced to Yahowah's solution, as we keep on saying. He has a couple of guys.
And his couple of guys
are Eldod, which is the Almighty's beloved. That is unquestionably Dode David.
And Madod.
And the other one is my Dode.
Dode.
Yeah, I know.
My beloved.
Yeah, well, it's the my would be symbolic of the mem, which is the waters, which means that he provides, there's cleansing provided and new life provided through him, and that he's also a goy, and that the yod would indicate that he is conveying both God's influence, but in this case, since it's associated with Dode, he is Dode's right hand. He is Dode's right hand. So these two people were filled with the ruach of Yahowah. That did not, by the way, make them mothers.
No. You know what all this screams to me?
Girls.
It screams mommy issues.
Oh, of course. Well, it screams, I have a miserable life, and I am desperate for to be important somehow. So I'm going to create a mommy figure that everybody can worship me.
I'll build a temple to myself.
Then that is, she built a temple to her. Well, she had some help building a temple.
Oh, sure she did.
A temple builder who is now the subject of Numbers 15.
Yes.
Yes. So he's
and also Kara 24.
Yeah, he's going to find and both. It's the same exact
guy.
Same fate. Same guy is going to.
She has a builder.
What his fate is too, as we push forward with this. So that's Numbers 12. And then you move into.
Well, they were desperate to make it in Torah. Guess what?
Yeah, they did.
Wow.
Numbers 13. Then is the story of what's called the spies, and we're going to find as I'm going to present this in future shows that every aspect of the word for spies tells about this story. This woman wanted to be a songbird. She wanted to be the
gazelle, the great
first the
gazelle,
and then the shore. And the word for spy is also the word for this both pigeon and for the dove. It's the word for circular reasoning, and it is also the word that they have tried to write out of God's story, because I represent a character. Not that one should envy that, not that I'm bragging, because, well, the bull is one of the two animals sacrificed, which they would say, well, that's not possible because there's no human sacrifice. And then you'd say, all right, then you don't understand the nature of the sacrifice that Dode made as the Passover lamb, and the fact it was just his corporeal body, not his soul, not
that
his,
means you're also boring out.
And so you have no clue as to what you're talking about. The body was symbolic of the lamb. An animal has a bashar body, an animal has a nephesh soul, but in the case of Dode, the nephesh soul was not sacrificed. It carried our guilt into Sheol. And the same thing will be true with the Adamah Parah. Beautiful symbolism, though, in both of these two events. So that's the story of Numbers 13, is that the spies go in and they come out and they are really miserable. And there's
and liars.
Wonderful.
Wait a minute, they're complete, utter liars.
They say that they saw the Nephilim in the land. The Nephilim are those that Yahweh wiped out outside of Eden during the flood. And so there are no more Nephilim. So they could not have seen them. But
just
nonetheless,
doesn't stop them from making it up.
They talk about them, and then Yahweh uses in the fall the verbal root of the word, which means to be cast down and fall down, to mock them because of their. You don't want to go mano a mano or mano a gato with Yahweh. You are going to get your clock cleaned, and they
for good reason too. Yeah.
And so you read this, and you also are exposed to Moshe not recovering yet from his meltdown in Numbers 11 and the assault against him in Numbers 12 by his own family. And his send-off speech is really poor, but you learn a lot, which reinforces this idea that a prophet needs to be accurate regarding their portrayals of future and past history. But when they speak based upon their own experiences and their own personalities and the like, they're an ongoing process of learning themselves. And Moshe would grow beyond this, but this was not his best moment, not by a million years. And in fact, it was this point really that Yahweh decided, Moshe, you're not going in either. There'd only be two of the men that had made it this far early in the Exodus that would enter the promised land. Then you get into Numbers 14, which is, you don't want to overuse the term to say that it's the most despicable episode in Israel's life, in Israel's existence, because there's so many of them. But it is,
there's plenty.
It is really, really
it's
despicable.
A bad one. Yeah, it's pretty despicable.
The children of Israel had to say, and the only guy that stood up and made a difference was Caleb, a guy whose name means all heart, which in Hebrew would mean he's totally judgmental. He's really an extraordinary guy, but all the rest of them were repulsive. And it's that story and how God responds to them. And he essentially says, Israel, you're no longer mine. I want nothing to do with you.
Washed his hands of her.
You're as good as dead to me, and my view of you is that you're horse. So this idea, it's an important idea because it takes our attention to the adulterous woman here, that he's calling the men who spoke out against him prostitutes and whores, using a term that's also appropriate for adultery. And it was because of their religiosity when they thought that they could change the word of God and speak for God and be bigger than God and say, we don't want God's gift. So we're going back to slavery. It's an amazing story. And in that story, there is one of the most profoundly humbling presentations I have read, and it'll be something we'll share in a future program. But when Yahweh gives up on his people at this point and sees them as whores, he says that there will be a single goy who will be more effective, more important, more relevant to this final large return of the mortal remnant of Israel than all of Israel combined. So God
That's right.
predicted, he says, I can't do this through you, Israel. So I have a solution, and my solution
I got a guy.
is a guy, and that guy happens to be a goy. And it's a very powerful statement. And then he has Moshe gives a recap of the plight that they're in. And in that plight, Moshe specifically says that of this, that the fathers and the sons of Israel will be plagued for 3s and 4. He doesn't say 3 or 4 what? You read everything in your Bible, and you're going to read 3 or 4 generations, the 3rd and 4th generation.
Doesn't say
the
that.
word door doesn't appear. There is no reference
Nope,
to a generation.
There is not.
It doesn't say years. It doesn't say generations. It
Nope.
doesn't say millennia. It just doesn't say.
It just says
It's the
3 or
word
4.
for 3 in plural, and then the word for 4 in the singular form. And so if you're using Yahweh's typical symbolism, that would be 3,400 years.
Yep.
And from the moment that this statement was made to the day that goy was born, exactly 3,400 years. It is a
Interesting. What do you think the statistical probabilities of that happening are,
I'm
sir?
sure it's just a coincidence.
I'm sure it is. It's serendipity,
So,
right?
in fact, I just said, make of that what you will. So
I want to get in on that.
yeah, okay. So then we find that Yahweh says that the under 20s will have a chance to come into the land, but that everybody over 20, with exception of Yosha ben Nun and Caleb, who was of the tribe of guess who?
Caleb.
Yehuda.
Oh.
Yeah, Caleb represents Dod in this story. He's from the tribe of Yahud. So they, he tells them that it's only the less than 20s that are going to make it into the land, but it's going to be 40 years before they have that opportunity. And in the meantime, they're going to go chase lammies around the wilderness. That's going to be, and it's going to be a bitter time for them. And so the adults all said, well, the heck with God. We're going to go in that just because we said we wanted to run away from the land. Now that God has said that we can't get into it, we're going to show him. And so they tried to enter the land. They got slaughtered, literally slaughtered, which is exactly what God said was going to happen to them. So it's a very powerful story. And then you get into the 15th chapter, and there's this abrupt change that isn't a change at all. Yahweh says, when you speaking now to those 20-somethings, that under 20s, that are 40 years from getting into the land, that when you get into the land, this is what you're going to do to resolve the mess you have just made that have separated us. And this resolution revolves around 3, and principally 2, with the 3rd contributing in the end. And it's a bull. It is a lamb, and it is a goat. The bull is Yada, the lamb, of course, is Dod, and the goat is Elia. And God goes to great lengths to talk about their voluntary and loving sacrifice that they offer on behalf of the people.
It is a gift.
For reconciliation and the nature of this gift. And it is, I would say that God's presentation, since it is rendered in very long, complicated sentences, may only be for the mature, for those who are exceedingly thoughtful and
Interested.
and are focused and interested, because every nuance is riveting of it and speaks of what God's going to do to resolve this problem.
Mhm.
But
In great detail.
from that point, then the next thing that is raised is that there is this fellow that's tearing up trees
Yeah, there is.
on a Shabat. And they say, well, what should we do? And God says, stone him to death. And no one's ever understood why God would react so strongly to a guy. It's always translated, he's picking up sticks, but the word there is etz, and etz means tree
It's a tree.
in Hebrew. And so, why did God respond? And this is now, they've just called God's land, the land which is now Israel, disgusting. They vile. They would prefer, they said they'd prefer to die than live with God there. Now, so after all of that, why would you stone a guy for uprooting trees? And
because there's two important trees in the story.
the
tree of
is,
lives and the tree of good
that
and
is
evil.
true. That is correct. Those are the two trees. And they are the bull and the lamb. The lamb is the tree of lives. Passover opens the door of life. Yada is the tree of knowledge. That's what yada means.
Mhm.
And it is only the tree of knowledge of good and bad that gives you the opportunity to come back to the tree of lives.
That's right.
Dode. And so it's just like the sun, light being reflected by the moon.
Mhm.
The tree of the knowledge of good and evils explains the nature of the tree of lives. And God's story is so beautifully
interwoven.
told and
Mhm.
interwoven. And it's one of those things you're really not in a position to understand it until you have spent a score of years translating it, examining it, looking at every letter of every word under an etymological microscope, so that you know the etymology of every single word.
Or you could just learn from the
verbal
best and have a very open mind and treat the text with absolute integrity.
Yeah. So that is, till you've done that, and you've written these 35 books that are behind me, you don't have the foundation.
No.
And the insights and the inclination and the chokmah, the wisdom, the
I love that word.
intelligence.
Chokmah.
Yeah, and nor the bien, this ability to make the connections, to be able to render and share these insights, which are so valuable. So anyway, that's where we are in this text. That song speaks to all of these things, but it also speaks to the story of what we call the adulterous woman, understanding that is the name we're using for it, because that's the name that people are familiar with. It's Numbers 5. And the cure for this, and I can assure you that I am the first person ever, since this was written 3,400 years ago, who has correctly identified the adulterous woman as the mortal remnant of Israel, and that the adultery is religious infidelity. And that the groom who wants his bride back is David, the returning
and
king.
she's got to be clean
Of Israel. And so it is the ashes of the bull that cleanse this woman. That is the Adam of Parah of Numbers 19, so that you understand the connection between these two. And that occurs on Towrah, when the Parah is sacrificed for this returning mortal remnant of Yisrael. So it is in that light that we will begin this story. Yahweh. And we say it Yahowah. And that is because the Yod and the He are understood from the way Yahweh introduced his name. In the Torah, which explains the pronunciation of the Wah, Yahweh told Moshe that his name was based on the verb Haya.
That's right.
And the verb Haya explains how to pronounce the He and the Yod. Those are 3 of the 4 letters in Yahweh's name. So we know how to pronounce them based upon the verbal root, which means I was, I am, and I always will,
Will be.
Verbs in Hebrew
Mhm.
are not stuck or limited in time. They are time full. So Haya means I was, I am, and I always will be. The only letter then left to ponder the implications of is the Wah. And we know the pronunciation of the Wah from hundreds and hundreds of Hebrew words. But of course, Torah, which is God's teaching on the subject and
Shalom.
the place where his name was revealed, the Wah sound, in addition to the Hey sound, comes from the Wah, the O sound. Also, there are many names associated with Yahweh, like Yoel, that convey the O sound of the Wah. To remove it is to degrade Yahweh's name. It is an unforgivable offense.
It is.
Yahweh spoke, Dwar, to Moshe. Moshe is a name that means to draw out. It is from mashah, the verb, to cause people to leave one place and go to another. To say, provide instruction and direction. This is shawah. It is almost always rendered in English Bibles as a command, but it based on the notion of instructing, directing, authorizing, and appointing. This was written in the Peel imperative. The imperative is a second person expression of volition, which means God is offering Moshe the opportunity to do what's right here. You should choose to provide instruction and direction. Regarding, who is this regarding? Now, this is the chapter on the adulterous woman regarding Bnei Yisrael, the children of Yisrael, that they voluntarily send out, that they shalach, they dispatch, they choose to remove. And this was written in the Jusiv, which is a third person expression of volition. They is third person. So that they voluntarily, of their own accord, send out. They remove from the community, the encampment, from this dwelling place, everyone who is infectious, whether mentally disoriented, with chronic anxiety, hopelessly confused, plagued by a pandemic disease, or leprous. It's Sirah. Sirah is used in many places in the Torah and in the prophets and in the writings. And yet there's only one case presented in the Torah where somebody actually had the disease of leprosy.
That's
and
true.
Yet we're told over and over again how to deal with them.
Yes.
Now, the reason is that this one person that had leprosy was struck with leprosy by God himself for a specific crime.
For wanting to speak for Yahweh.
For God. You don't choose to speak for God.
He chooses you.
He chooses you. And there are very few people that God has chosen. And the people God has chosen, he has told them, he has chosen them. And he told them in such a way that there are hundreds, if not 1,000, references to them that only
specifically
they fulfill. And so you cannot claim, like popes do, and like this leprous psychopath does, to speak for God. You don't have that option. Yeah. And what God said in response to this woman, who didn't even go to the point of trying to speak for, all she did is say, we too speak for God. She didn't actually say anything.
Nope.
She just came up with the
idea, the mere idea of it.
That we too speak for God.
And Yahweh shut that down wholesale.
He gave her leprosy. And
divorced her.
He said, you're so disgusting. It's as if your father spit in your face.
I wouldn't even look at you.
Yeah. So this is really serious. So everything God says about leprosy, in this case, remove them. Stay away from them.
And whose job is
Withdraw
this?
from them.
The children of Israel.
Yes, absolutely. The
Bene
children of
Israel. If you
have
consider
a
yourself
responsibility
Israel, you're to remove
by
them.
choice. In other words, you don't do it, you're going to catch leprosy too. You're going to be infected with the same
It's infectious.
pandemic disease. So this is only one person had it. She got it because she claimed that after besmirching Moshe's wife, who Yahweh had authorized to speak for him, not her wife, but Moshe himself. And she claimed to speak for God along with Moshe, and God said, "The hell you do," and struck her with leprosy. So anybody who is
and
plagued
threw her out of the camp
with a disease, a mental disorder, including leprosy, in addition to anyone with oozing sores, discharging copious amounts of pus, including those with a venereal disease or covered in boils. God is using here skin infections to say that the disease that causes people to rebel against him, to speak over his chosen implements, should be as visible to you as a skin lesion, as a boil. These things, like that ugly dome on the Temple Mount, it is a skin lesion. It is a boil that ought to be lanced.
I'd be happy to push the plunger for you. I want to push the button. I want to push the button.
God is saying of the religious and those who arrogantly and
you should treat them as a third level quarantine infectious disease,
and who practice whoredom from God's point of view, the worst kind of whoredom, which is to mislead based upon claiming to speak for him.
That's right.
That these individuals should be so obvious to you that you will recognize them just by looking at them. They're infected, as well as anyone whose soul is contaminated, polluted, defiled, or any other corruption associated with religious idolatry, including both male and female. So this chapter on the adulterous woman, Zakar,
not about women.
Makeba. It's about
Nakba.
Everyone. Nakiba. Yeah. Nakiba. That's one of those three words that Leah was drawing our attention to. Nakiba. And in this case, how would you define it, Leah? Beyond
it is a one who is in abject rebellion. One who is really accursed, an accursed person. That is someone who takes and perverts and twists Yahweh's nature, his plan, his path, or his people. You are Nakba. That's it. That's all. There's no coming back from it.
Yeah, it's a really negative term. Zakar, on the other hand, is a memorable man. So it is in almost all cases, a very positive term. You can be a memorable man and be awful. Adolf Hitler was a memorable man, and he was awful. Donald Trump is a highly memorable man, and he's the Antichrist.
Horrible.
There are some memorable men. You would probably know some too. They're rich that have ever signed their name to uprooting the tree of the knowledge of right and wrong, good and bad.
The same ones that pierce Yahweh's name.
Yes.
Remove the Wah. How stupid.
Rewriting his testimony.
You want to remove the Wah from his name? That's Nakba.
That's Nakba. Yep. So you should constantly send them away to outside the encampment. So if it's a notorious person, infamous man, or a unclean woman, you should constantly send them away to outside the encampment, putting them apart from where the community is living. Don't associate with them. Now, I'm happy, delighted. That's the thing that I just come to realize by all of this, that they exist because we need a filter. What I have done in the last 24 years is to write these 35 books that you see around me that provide direct access to God, so that you know who he is, what he's offering, what he's expecting in return, and everything you need to know about how to form a relationship with him. The worst thing that could possibly happen if there's no filter, there's not somebody out there that is providing obstacles and luring.
No, providing the service that Aaron provided to be
Right,
the
the
alternative.
Yeah, exactly right.
Bravo.
Bravo. Which that is necessary.
It is necessary.
That is why.
Because it takes away
Hasatan-
all the lazy thinkers,
Yeah, that's why
all
Hasatan-
the immoral,
Mhm.
all the twisted, all the ones who would do this later on. Just take them all
That's
now.
exactly why
They're yours.
Hasatan was allowed into the garden.
And they were never Yahwehs.
You'd have to have a filter, a means
That's right.
to give those who have not thought it all through, who are not reliable, who are not dependable, who are not honorable. You have to have
Something that's more palatable to
miserability in
them.
their life. In fact, in this particular rebellious group, most all of them came from conspiracy. They were all part of a really nasty conspiracy cult.
Oh wait, no, they've reunited. Now
Yeah.
they're a big happy family together. So I was
Right.
right about the evil branch. It's all one branch
It's
now.
all one branch.
Yeah.
They're part of a conspiracy cult, and that cult is why God hates conspiracy. And so this is what
That was just for you,
This
Brian.
is what we're dealing with. And there have been a lot of studies on conspiracy,
Yes.
and the conclusion is consistent.
Mhm.
100% of those who are involved in conspiracy, whether they be young or old, liberal or
From any
conservative,
socioeconomic background, it doesn't matter.
rich or poor,
Yep.
of any nationality or race,
Mhm.
there's only one common thread between all of them. They have
It's psychological.
miserable, unfulfilling lives. And this woman
And they
that
want
runs
they
this cult
seek to
has had the
blame
most
someone
miserable
or
life
feel
you can even
special.
imagine. And she, of course, picks herself as a victim, not recognizing that, of course, she is always on the losing end because of what she does to others, because she's so disgusting and manipulating others. But they all have miserable, unfulfilling lives, and they're looking for someone to blame for their miserable, unfulfilled lives. So they pick somebody who is successful and try to tear them down. That is the nature of all conspiracies.
Or they try to wear them like a human skin and just look like we're wearing a cheap suit. Either
So
way,
you
it's
should
disgusting.
consistently send them away to outside the encampment, putting them apart from where the community is living, so that they do not contaminate, corrupt, or infect the community. In which, for the benefit of the relationship and to show the correct path to get the most out of life, I dwell in their midst. So God is saying, I don't want anything to do with them. So since I'm dwelling in your midst, you have to remove them.
Did you hear
It's
that, kids?
It's either
You are in charge of getting rid of them.
it's either you
Not mommy or daddy. It's the
it's-
children of
it's-
Israel.
Your choice is you can
Get 'em out of
be
here.
with me or with them, but you can't have both.
Cannot have both.
So be careful. If you choose them,
Mm.
it is goodbye to you. For a home, now this, by the way, is what I've been saying for decades. The only sane approach to a deadly pandemic, like Islam, for example, is to quarantine it. Similarly, Israelis should isolate the Haredim so that their delusions do not
Absolutely.
spread. They should do the same thing to the Marxists, by the way, too.
Oh, yeah.
I'd wall off, Tel Aviv, and I'd wall off the areas around Jerusalem in particular, where the Haredim have congregated, and say, you want to go
In their ghettos.
and delude one another, go ahead and do so. Just don't affect the rest of us. Now, okay, that would shrink Israel by 40%, with 20% on either side.
It kind of
But
would, yeah.
they're parasitical on both ways. They're exceedingly destructive politically and religiously to Israel's viability. And so long as they have a voice in Israel, Israel will be a house divided and separated from God. So when there is a viral pandemic like COVID-19, those who are infected should never be brought to hospitals. That was the first thing I said when that disease became known in 2020, is that we're doing something incredibly stupid. We're taking the people infected with this virus and putting them in the midst of people who are really sick. And what you're going to do is you're going to spike the fatality rates that would otherwise have been as few as 1 in 1,000, which is the average mortality rate for the flu, which turned out to be the overall mortality rate for COVID-19. Although COVID-19, because of the research that was done in the Wuhan lab, had a far more effective triggering mechanism that made it much more difficult to shed. And it was a virus that was a blend of 3 viruses. It was kind of like a delicatessen of viruses, where it had the old SARS virus, Ebola, and HIV all blended together.
Recombinant.
But the fact is, you just don't bring sick people into a place where there are sick people.
No, you get them out of
or
there.
Where your children are, or where your elderly are.
Get them
get them out. You
get them out.
It's not that you ignore them. You just get them out. You withdraw them from the community so that the community is not at risk in killing everybody. There are copious reasons that God is steadfast as an advocate of Kodesh, which is separation. For a home and community to be safe, we are most compassionate and wise when we remove those who are unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
They can and should be treated, but apart from the community. In some cases, there is no treatment, like when Angela Merkel decided that she lied about Islam and brought Muslims into Europe. They have destroyed Europe, and there is no turning back from what she has done. It's Europe's over. There's nothing now that can be done to save Europe. And therefore, this reads, the children of Israel did so and sent them out such that they were apart in a public place outside of the encampment and community, consistent with the beneficial manner Yahweh had spoken to Moshe. The family engaging and enduring with God did what was right. That didn't last very long.
Nope.
This is still early. This is Numbers
early
5.
in the story, babes.
This is Numbers 5:4. Yahweh spoke to Moshe to say, declare this to the children of branded with a stigma as a sign of being possessed and controlled by another is a man or a woman who chooses to continually act upon or habitually engage in any part of that which is offensive and wrong, with ensuing guilt for having missed the way or leading others astray.
I would say we made it pretty public.
Now, in terms of leading people astray, there's only one institution that does that pursuant to God. Religion. That's it. By acting in an adulterous and unfaithful manner. So now he's using a term that would convey unfaithful, treacherous, adulterous, and it's ma'al. God is associating infidelity, defiance against him, treachery, and adultery with misleading people, leading them astray, which is a religious undertaking.
Yeah, it is.
So by acting in an adulterous and unfaithful manner, being defiant and treacherous by rising above Yahweh, what did the children of Israel do in Numbers 14 and 15? They said, to hell with what Yahweh says. We'll go climb that hill. We're going to go into the promised land. We don't need to listen to him.
They did the same thing they've always done by effing themselves, thinking that they know better than Yahweh.
They gave God the bird and spit in his face.
That's right.
By the way, God didn't like it.
No, not very much.
Rising above Yahweh, the soul of this descendant of Adam will be deemed guilty, and they will suffer the consequence of this. Now, the consequence can be anything from at the end of their mortal life, they will die. It can be before their mortal life would normally transpire.
Yeah.
They're going to get killed. And it could also be that they're actually not going to die. They'll die a physical death, but they're going to spend eternity incarcerated in Sheol because of the severity of their religious crime.
Like boring a hole out of Yahweh's name?
That would be such a crime. changing Yahweh's name in any way diminishing it is unforgivable. In fact, they actually went as far as to rewrite much of Bereshith to suit their religious agenda. They couldn't find Mother God, and the passage of the Mashal, the Proverbs 8, that they claimed that they were so brilliant in finding, that doesn't mention an M, mother, and doesn't mention a Ruach, spirit. They've now rewritten Bereshith, Genesis, to lure more people into their leprous den. So, yeah, thank you. On their own initiative, unaffected by others, they should understand, acknowledge, and then cast aside their guilt for having been wrong and misleading, such that they engaged in the wrong things up to this point. Then he will return to transform and to restore the first and foremost, making a reconciling guilt offering for them, then adding something over and beyond the fifth to it.
That's a whole lot to unpack there.
Yes. And so for the benefit of the relationship, he will offer this as a gift at the proper point in time for the one who was guilty and liable for wrongdoing.
Yeah.
Numbers 5:7. Well, this is actually a simple and straightforward process. Come to know and acknowledge that religion and politics are misleading and that God wants us to disassociate from both, and then do so. Cast these villains aside. Recognize that Yahweh has a plan to resolve the guilt incurred prior to accepting the truth about him and his way. Almost anyone can be restored and come to Yahweh by acting upon this message once restitution is made to resolve prior guilt. Doesn't resolve ongoing guilt, but prior guilt. For most, they will capitalize upon what Dod has done for us on Matzah, when he removed our shame and carried it with him into Sheol, where it was deposited, never to be seen again. But not everyone, because 9 years from now, actually 8 years from now, the last Passover unyeasted bread and firstborn children will have come and gone. And those who were among the last to observe Chag Matzah and capitalize upon the Messiah's gift will be among those souls that are gleaned during the fifth Moed, Towrah. And those who had not, who were left behind, this mortal remnant of Yisrael, who were God's referring to as the religious whore.
Yeah, they get a second chance for romance.
They get a second chance for romance.
Right
with
there.
Dod, the king, with Yahweh using Yada to serve as the Adamah Parah. It is this sacrifice, as what's called the red heifer, that will provide the final opportunity to come clean and come home. Therefore, in the preamble to the story of the adulterous woman, Yahweh is revealing that there will be a time when those who were deliberately passed over and excluded from participating in that fifth Moed, Towrah, due to their lingering guilt, and who have failed to avail themselves of Dod's sacrifice, fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bekorim, will need immediate restitution. For this, Yahweh's foremost reconciler will offer to take their guilt upon himself and have it obliterated along with what is left of his Bashar, mortal body. Now, Yahweh in Numbers 19 speaks of this as being a wonderful and miraculous occurrence.
He is thrilled.
And it's not wonderful and miraculous because of a man sacrificing his body.
Nope.
It's what God does with it that matters.
It's the effect of that, the conclusion, yes.
So for Yada to refer to what Yahweh has and will continue to do with his Bashar, which, by the way, is also the Hebrew word for herald, on the Yom Teruah, which is the day of the herald, as his foremost means to provide reconciliation at that last moment is accurate, because Moshe was Yahweh's foremost liberator and teacher, and Dod has been Yahweh's foremost protector, role model, and savior. And while both the first and second Zeroah offered the means to reconciliation, it was not their primary mission. As foretold, the Adamah Parah's gift of reconciliation will be over during and beyond the fifth Moed.
Mm-hmm.
As did his king before him, he will offer his life to restore the remnant of Yisrael on the cusp of the Messiah's return. Consistent with the prophecy of the red heifer, his offer will be to cleanse their souls by accepting and then incinerating their religious and political malfeasance.
I said that's a big job, and it's a big effing deal.
It's a big request by God.
Mm-hmm.
God had to know that when he wrote all of this prophetically, inspired it prophetically, that this man would come to exist, that he would agree, that he would devote his life to learning, that somewhere along the line that he would figure out, just as Dod did, that it's my role to do this, and then he would agree to do it, and then he could be counted on to see it through. That is, you better be really sure of yourself if you're going to put that kind of commitment in writing, and do so 3,400 years.
I'm sure of
in
one
advance.
thing and one thing only. He picked the right animal when he recognized the cherubim.
I am certainly not going to question God's judgment. I think he could have done better. But evidently,
it suits your personality.
Evidently, there wasn't any. Well,
maybe you don't know. Maybe you haven't looked into the beauty of bulls.
What I would say with great confidence is that I did not win this job by being faster, smarter, quicker, better than the other applicants, because there were no other applicants.
You won by default.
Yes, yes. I came in last and I came in first, in this particular situation. So
yes,
it's
lovely that you like to self-deprecate. However, Yahweh seems to think you're a big effing deal.
Yeah, I came in.
So put on your big boy pants.
I came in unchallenged.
Time to roll.
I came in unchallenged. God is very clear in saying that he looked for millennia and found no one among his people that were willing to listen to him and do this job.
We were too busy being whores.
So he scraped the bottom of the barrel, found himself a goy, and we were off to the races because I was willing to do it.
Unproductive? Look at the bookshelf.
No, I do think God should have been able to do better.
Do you?
The fact of the matter is that once we engaged, we've been effective. We've been productive together. I don't think there's anyone that can actually question that we have been a very good team.
I think so.
I've served God with every ounce of my devotion, and I will, when this is over, which I'm not sure it's ever over. I think with God, it just continues.
Leolam, forever's forever.
And God is quite good at this idea. I don't want you to get bored.
Yeah.
And I want you to reach your full potential. And the best way to accomplish that would be for you to, for me to up the ante every step of the way. So just when you you never do get comfortable with what God is requesting, but just when you process what God is requesting.
Yeah, he'll put something new.
He put something new. So you're never going to get bored. This is just the way it is. I am told by my beloved producer.
Wrap it up, Buttercup.
Yes, that we need to wrap this up because we do have a show that
wrap it up, Buttercup.
is this evening. It's hard for me to do this because of the fact that I do dearly love that song. I think it's my favorite song that you produced thus far.
Thank you.
There's so much to share about the basis for that song in Numbers 5. It is a story that I have not told with the layer of passion and detail that it requires. And I could stay here and talk about the basis of this for the next 20 hours. and
too.
would be in tears and smiling and passionate. This is really important. I'm going to leave it at this.
Which is why I
I'm
did
gonna-
the
I'm gonna
song.
leave it at this, Leah.
Okay.
Most people believe that the Torah is a history book.
No.
I have come to know that it is a prophetic book.
Yes.
Virtually every story and event in the Torah did those who were part of that story very little good. Everything Yahweh said to the children of Israel during the Exodus had no value to them. They flipped God the bird. They told him to go away. They said, we don't ever want to hear from you again.
And shut up. Yeah.
And so it did them no good. So every one of those stories is prophetic. They have not held meaning until this moment. And that is why those stories are all coming alive as part of the YAHOWAH blog. God is now telling his story to his people the way he's always wanted it told. And these accounts are all prophecies for our time, for you, for me, for us, for now.
Mm-hmm.